I'd like to welcome everyone to the City of High Point's Community Development Meeting on February 8th at 4 p.m. Close. I'd like to start out with the first item is an update on the Homeless Service Guilford County Continuum of Care. Who do we have online? Dr.
Palmer.
I have Sherry.
I think it's Sherry. Sherry. Oh, actually, before we start, and I know I goofed this up, I wanted to say in the room we have myself, Chris Williams, and Councilman Wesley Hudson and Councilman Cyril Jefferson, and I'm told that Councilman Johnson should be walking momentarily. So with that done, I will now turn the floor over to Sherry.
I've asked her to unmute. I don't know if she's. No, she's still muted. Mm-hmm.
We're still working with a few.
Yeah, she's in the meeting. She can speak. She just is muted. Herself is her microphone is muted on her end. So.
Okay.
I can't. I've asked to unmute 2 or 3 times, but.
Oh, I think she's getting it. Mrs. Neal, can you hear us? If you can hear us, you are actually muted. Can you unmute yourself? Do we want to come back? Is that okay? That be all right? Okay, we'll circle around back to the update on a continuum of care. So I'll move forward with the next item, which is an update on the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA funds. And for that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, good afternoon. I just wanted to give you a brief overview. I know that, thank you. I know that the city received an allocation of funds under the American Rescue Plan, but also community development received an allocation through the home program, home ARP funds. And so I wanted to just give you just a little bit of an overview of that process and how we don't have a plan for the funds at this point, but just to kind of give you an outline of what we need to do. I think I just have bad luck with this.
That's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, of course, President Biden signed the ARP into law, providing over $1.9 trillion in relief to address the continued impact of COVID-19. And $5 billion was allocated to be administered through the home program. So this went to home programs across the country. And the City of High Point, we received $1.9 million, just shy of $2 million through the program. $1,690,105 of that can be allocated for programs and projects, and the balance, $298,254, can be used for administration and planning. We have been released a portion of the planning funds, about $99,000 that has been released. We haven't used any of the funds at this point, but when we are ready to start implementing and developing the plan, we do have funds available for administration. The purpose of these funds are primarily to benefit qualifying individuals and families who are homeless, who are at risk of homelessness or in other vulnerable populations like veterans or those that are at 30% and below the area median. So we're talking about those in our community that are in the extremely low income category. The eligible activities include development and support of affordable housing, tenant-based rental assistance, provision of supportive services, and acquisition and development of non-congregate shelter units. And in order for us to implement the plan, what we will have to do is prepare a substantial amendment and submit that whenever the plan is completed, and submit that amendment to our fiscal year 2021 annual action plan. So that's last year's plan that we would actually have to amend. And just a little bit about the process, because one of the things that they really wanted with this funding is to ensure that there is input and feedback from the community so that we can be sure that we are addressing the most pressing needs in the community. So we do have to go through a consultation and public participation process. And annually, when we do our annual action plan, we do have community meetings, we do have a public hearing and present our plan before you all. And so we plan to incorporate the home ARP funds into that process. And those meetings will be coming up. We don't have them scheduled yet, but just in the next couple months, we'll be having those meetings. And some of the things that the plan that it has to include, a summary of our consultation process, summary of comments that we've received through the public participation process, a description of the qualifying populations within our jurisdiction, and an assessment of unmet needs of each of these qualifying populations, an assessment of gaps in our housing and shelter inventory, homeless assistance and services, and homelessness prevention service delivery system, so a gaps analysis basically. We have to have a summary of the planned use of the funds for the eligible activities to meet those gaps or other unmet needs, an estimate of the number of housing units that we plan to produce or preserve with the allocation, and then a description of any preferences for individuals and families in particular, qualifying in a particular qualifying population or segment of a qualifying population. So that would be like victims of domestic violence or veterans or some subpopulation. And so that really, like I said, it is really just kind of like the high-level overview, just to kind of familiarize you all with the process that we will have to undertake in order to use these funds. Like I said, right now, we don't have any ideas. There are no projects on the table. So it is open. One of the things that I have spoken with our deputy county manager about is whether or not we may be able to use these funds in coordination maybe with some other ARP funds or ARPA funds to really do a project that would have some major impact within the city. So right now, like I said, we are wide open.
Well, I want to, if there are any questions for the staff on this?
I have a question. Councilman Johnson.
Yeah.
You said extremely low income. Well, what's the dollar amount of that?
That's based on household size, but typically you are looking at, let's just say like a one-person household, that would be under $10,000 a year. Around, yeah, somewhere around there, but you are really talking about those families that have very, very limited income.
That is low, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Wilson, thank you for this information. I know that there are efforts underway for us to consider partnering with organizations to do maybe a day center here in the city. And maybe for those listening, if you're able to maybe tell us based on what we know about this information and the acceptable uses, where that might line up with that effort. And I understand where it's mentioned something about non-congregate sheltering, so I'm not sure exactly what that would.
Non-congregate simply means that the residents are not co-located. When we think of emergency shelters, you think of a big room, with multiple beds and cots or things like that. So when we talk about non-congregate, we're talking about individual spaces for individuals and families, that they are not co-located. And that doesn't mean that you can't have two individuals sharing one room, but we're talking about mass shelter. That's not something that they are really proposing or supporting.
So single-family housing and perhaps duplexes would be eligible uses?
Yes, for single-family housing, it would have to really be heavily subsidized, because when you start talking about folks that are at 30% and below the area median, that's even below what Habitat, the population that Habitat serves. So they would, it would really have to be heavily subsidized.
Have you had, this is Councilman Williams, have you had like any early talks with any of our current partners, like home rehabs and things of such? Have they kind of reached out to you at all?
No, we have not. We haven't looked at anything. I have myself just looked at a few facilities before, like I'll just mention the Pruitt Health Facility we kind of looked at, and just looked at some other apartments and things like that, duplexes around the city, but we have not approached anybody about anything, and I have not spoken with any of our partners or any of our nonprofit agencies at this point.
Could this be used for temporary housing?
It can be used for emergency shelter, so that would be temporary as long as it's just non-congregate.
Non-congregate, right. So overflow, like what Open Door Ministries is having.
Right. One of the goals is that we really want to try to provide permanent housing. That is the goal. But of course, it can be used for temporary, short-term housing, certainly.
I got just one more question. Do you have any kind of idea of when you're going to start your public engagement, or do you have a date already set since you had your?
No, our public meetings, we will begin to have those toward the end of this month and next month. Typically, we have 2 meetings during our planning process, but we have talked about having an additional meeting during the day. We typically have those meetings at night because we know that our citizens work, and so we want them to be able to participate. And so we are looking at possibly doing a virtual meeting so that we can have our agencies participate and that they wouldn't have to come back out to a meeting or anything at night. So we are discussing maybe doing something like that virtually.
Thank you. Any other questions? I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
I look forward to seeing what's next.
Yes.
I would like to try to circle back to Sherry Neal for the update on the homeless service, Gifford County Continuum of Care. All right, good, excellent. I'll gladly turn it.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm having some challenges, so my screen is still black, and I was having audio earlier, so I do apologize for the delay. So just to talk a little bit about what we have been working on in the continuum of care, and Dr. Palmer is on here too as well. Really just trying to work on talking about a systematic system in relating to us addressing some of our issues and concerns around our citizens and the entire county being able to respond acutely to the needs as we find individuals and families that are in displaced situation, or whether it's during the day or at night, and how do we deal with those emerging cases. We've been doing a lot of work around looking at some policies and stuff that we have set forth right now in coordinated entry. We're right now looking at a way to collaborate. The county, this is unofficial, has located a possible building that we could help leverage for the entire county around expanding some capacity for, just as Nina was just talking about in regarding to crisis situation, until we can get individuals linked and connected back to case managers or individuals that work with the homeless population. Been a lot of community engagement around how do we expand capacity and affordable housing, which we're all sitting here and talking about. and what's kind of be the next step as the county and both municipalities work collaboratively together to address some of the needs in our community to support our homeless agencies moving forward. Dr. Palmer, did you want to add anything else?
Thank you, Councilman Williams, for having us on the agenda. As always, we appreciate the opportunity to share and to give you an update. The one thing that I would focus on is the collaborative applicant transition process. As you know, last year we approached this group with supporting us to proceed to engage the county as our collaborative applicant. And Sherry and myself and other members of the executive committee and the COC have been working with HUD TA to finish that transition process. So while the COC partners, Sherry and her role with the county, are working on day-to-day tasks, we are behind the scenes still in that transition process and getting that guidance from HUD such that all of that becomes finalized this year. And so I think it's relevant for this group to know, with your support, we began that process, and now we're coming towards somewhat some closure to that process, which yields additional resources for us to tap as it relates to addressing homelessness in Guilford County. As Sherry mentioned, there's quite a bit of attention on coordinated entry and shelter placement. And that is, especially during these winter months, supporting and helping individuals who are calling into our system to acquire housing in more of a crisis when it's cold outside. And so coordinated entry is working to support those individuals and really mobilizing all of the partners within the system to be able to care for individuals who are challenged in that way. So I think that's important to mention. And then, of course, along with that, there has been quite a bit of study and attention given to the phone line that is used for partners, for individuals experiencing homelessness, for any individual person, organization that is seeking shelter and or seeking support as it relates to housing. Is that particular resource is being studied now, and we're trying to hone in on a resource that will help us to be able to receive those calls and respond to those individuals promptly. Sherry, that's all I have. I just wanted to kind of give that those kind of overarching areas of work that we're doing, while at the same time working with not only Sherry in the county office, but the staff with you all there with the city of High Point, in particular, Nina's team.
And I think to add that the county is in conversation about expanding capacity with my current role so that we can address as a community around some of the needs and issues as the county is the collaborative applicant. So those are conversations that are going on as well, Councilman. So just, and if you have any additional questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer, but that's what's been going on in the last, I guess, 60 days at least.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Are there any questions for either Dr. Palmer or Sir? I'd like to thank y'all, and continue to have these updates coming in. We're talking about the different types of funding resources that we're working with now and everything connected with COVID. And Dr. Palmer, please don't bite my head off about these numbers. I just remember some old numbers
You're
back
okay.
when I was doing some research. I think the cost of a chronic homeless individual to the community is about $35,000 a year. And then an investment, on housing is far less than that. So, you know, I know that some of the question comes up that we're always talking about, you know, that people are talking about the resources used in these situations, but I see it as more of an investment in our own community to basically do more than just house people, but actually save lives. So thank you so much for the service you're providing for us, and please keep bringing that information to us and let us know how we can help.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, the next item up, I'm sorry, I lost it. It is a discussion on the minimum housing process. And I think that we're turning that over to Lori from staff, okay. And she is, and it just says demolition in quotation marks.
Do what?
I said, it says demolition in quotation marks here, so we'll.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness.
Just keep them on hold.
I'm like, this would be the over 50 section right here.
Oh, here we go.
So I presented this to this committee back probably in 2016, I think it was, and it's still the same process. Nothing's changed really, but just kind of wanted to review it as a refresher for you all, and then answer any questions, especially based on, you know, cases that I've brought before you in the last several years, for some of you that are familiar. So this is just, I'm going to give you kind of what the citizen, how they usually look at things, and then the reality of what we have to do. So basically, you know, the citizen will see that we go out and we do an inspection. So then they think everything happens and I always just say in a perfect world, like everything really happens and moves along and progresses, but it doesn't. But they see that we go out, they know we issue a hearing notice, that we then issue an order, and then they think we should be able to take it to city council sometimes. They're really understanding, I've found in the last several years, but some don't understand. They think, we already inspected it and you sent a letter, they're not doing anything, you need to go ahead and take it. But the reality, this is our reality, and this is just a workflow of what we designed for our software, but it just has a lot of loops of things and processes that we built in to try and make sure that the inspectors are doing what they need to do, and we try to limit any expenses to the city, so we're not just mailing out mail and then find we made a mistake later. But that's kind of what this walks through. All the green steps is what the inspectors handle. The purple is me as the supervisor. So all the greens when they're going through the hearing and the order, and this is what the handout I handed you. So, and then trying to work with the property owners, trying to find out if they're going to do something, permitting, demolition, whatever. And this is the same process, whether it's an order to repair, vacate, order to repair, abolish. The only difference is an order to repair does not ever come before city council. We just continually monitor it, and it just stays with us for however long it has to stay. And then once we finish doing the actual demolition work down in the purple, if we have to do that, then it goes to we say legal, and that's just where we place the lien on the property, and all that's recorded at the courthouse, and the invoice is sent to the property owner. Any questions on that before I jump to?
Any questions?
I don't know if it's you that I can ask or legal. When you say it goes to legal, what happens then after we demolish and we put a lien? What happens to the property and the back taxes with the county? What other options are there? How do we regain that?
You want to do it? You want me? We place a lien on the property, and that stays there typically for up to 10 years. And then we place it on the taxes the following year. So anything I demolished in city demolished in 2020 will be on their 2021, will be on their 2022. Gosh, I'm horrible at the year. Whenever the bill, I guess 2022 taxes that come out around August, is that? And so if it's not paid, If they don't sell it, if they sell it, that has to be satisfied. If they don't, it stays on there for up to 10 years. And,
Another thing too is that if we get notice of a larger amount, sometimes we'll renew that. We can renew a judgment like that every 10 years, so kind of just have to sit and wait. But we have a really good track record of collecting.
Thank you.
either they see it on their tax bill or the mortgage company, not demolitions, but the securing or other public nuisance. And then if someone purchases it and fixes it up, it may be paid. So this is kind of what the inspector goes through. So they may go out and do their inspection, and they have to determine if it's in violation or not. And then the next thing we have to do is we have to notify all owners and parties of interest. So we send it to Sharon Livengood, and she does, I thought I changed this on the presentation, but it says title, should say ownership validation. And that's where she'll check to see if there's a mortgage, if there's any deeds of trust, anyone who has a lien, some type of judgment against them, that they have a financial interest in the property, because we have to notify them as well. So it's not like we just notify whoever the local owner is. If there's someone who owner financed it and they have a deed, then we have to notify that person as well. And everyone has to be made aware of, to attend the same hearing at the same time, same date. We can't have someone show for a hearing one day and someone show for a hearing. So sometimes when we say, if you hear me in council say I have to start a case over, it may be that we didn't get good service and someone popped up and started talking to us about the property, and they gave us information that now we could find other people. So we'll start that over. But we send everything regular mail and certified to try and reach everyone. And sometimes we do have to advertise in the paper, as you've heard me say. Usually if it's air property and there's not a will, we have to advertise in the paper to try and reach everyone. And then we hold the hearing. And then part of the inspector's job is to make sure that we did notify everyone. And can we reasonably attain they got good service or they received good service, so that we notified them at the right address. If we mail someone a notice sometimes for some reason, they're getting the mail at the house is vacant, and we know nobody's living there. So we can't do in our job and do due diligence and in good faith continue to go, oh yeah, they received it, nobody's there. So we have to track people down various ways to try and get them served. And then as like under next step, number one, hold the hearing where all owners notified. If not, issue a new notice. So we've got to go back and do research. And that's what trips people up a lot of times, is trying to find people. And we do it various ways. But if, let's say everything went great, everybody got good service, we issue our next order, whatever that might be. And then we always give them 30 days. The statute says you shall issue an order. So we don't grant any extensions typically between a hearing and an order unless it's kind of a mistake. The inspector should always issue the order first, and then we grant extensions after that. The order tells them that they cannot offer it for rent if it becomes vacant. So during this process, also the inspector will put a hold on utilities. So if it is a house that's in bad shape, and needs some repairs, if the person moves out, we have a hold. They can't just move somebody back in there then. So that's another way we're able, since we have our own utilities, that we're able to hold the homeowner accountable, because the tenant will call and try to get the utilities, and then they call us and say they won't let us have it. Why not? There are repairs that need to be made. So that's very effective. And at this time, they also want to document, have they had any communication with an owner? Are they making any repairs? Has there been any change in ownership? People will sell it all of a sudden and they don't tell us. So the inspector kind of has to stay on top of it and check to see periodically, did anything change?
I got a quick question before we move. When you speak of holding utilities, how does that work with someone like Piedmont Gas, for example?
We do not do Piedmont Gas. We only put a hold on electric or water if the city has it. If it's Duke Power, we don't usually go put a hold on that. It's usually only the city utility, electric or water.
Okay. You don't think that, you think it'd be a possibility of like a understanding, in the sense of, like, we could tell them, we reach out to Piedmont and say, listen, this person is not supposed to get it because they, I don't know, the.
And say, ask them if they
Blow
would.
the house up if they don't, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we could always do that. So far, we've not really had any problems with us, as long as we have the water or electric, they're not gonna be able to move in. So they could go turn on the gas if they want to, but if they're not living there, you know, they're not gonna be able to do it. But they're not gonna get any service. But sometimes the property owners have made the repairs too, and if they have, and they call us and say we can't get it, then, you know, we try to get out there that same day to make sure it's inspected, passes, and then get everything released so somebody can move in. We try not to hold them up.
So, question, so if the owner does sell the property in between this time, what happens at that point? Do you have to start back over?
If it is a demo case, what we normally do at the beginning of the housing cases, we record a list pendens, and you may have heard me mention that at council as well. And that's just a document, and it has the copy of the hearing sheet that's attached to it that is recorded that states that we have a case pending against it. So if someone does do their due diligence before they purchase a property, they should find that. So if they purchase it, they should be aware that there's a case. And then sometimes they are, and they'll contact us. We do have instances where they may sell it to someone who did not do a title search, and then they find out after the fact that we have a case on it. And sometimes that happens on demo cases because people just want to unload it really quickly. And sometimes they'll unload it to someone who may not be seeking legal advice on the title search and all.
Thank you.
So after the order, and they verify, let's say everything's the same, nothing's changed, everything's good service, we continue to grant extensions. So another 30 more days would be into April, and they go out, they check on the property, they see, is it secured, is anything going on? Sometimes you'll see that they are moving materials on site, so we know somebody's doing something. Sometimes you see that maybe a truck is out there to demolish it, to start the removal of it. So they're still supposed to go out and check on it and verify all the same information kind of repeatedly every 30 to 45 days. And then we typically grant another extension again, because some people just, I don't know why, but that first 30 days after an order is issued, they still don't do anything the next. But sometimes at 90 days or 120 days, they'll start doing something. And sometimes we do issue civil penalties. We don't typically do that on demo cases. We typically do those only on order to repair vacates or order to repairs to try and get the property owner's interest, to tell them they need to move along. So then we stay at the grant extension process for as long as it takes. If they're making progress and moving things along, we stay there, we keep working with them. If not, we feel that the around 120 days, 90 to 120 days, we've given them enough time to show something, some good faith. Are you moving forward? Or are you doing something? I've also asked the inspectors to, if they have contact information, to call them and tell them beforehand, hey, we're looking at taking the city council in the next 30 days. Are you going to do anything? Sometimes they'll say they're in the process of selling it, whatever the situation may be. And then I will base my decision on when to bring it to council based on that. Sometimes they say, go ahead and take it. Sometimes they don't return calls, whichever. And then I just start preparing my paperwork to bring it to you all. And then in order, after it comes to us or to you all, and I bring it for you to hear and present everything, there's still a process after that. So we allow 30 days for them to appeal. I think it's a 10-day appeal period to Superior Court. And if they don't appeal, then I move forward with getting an asbestos inspection request. And if it's needed, then it gets abated. And then I do bids for demolition. And that could take, about up to 3 months, sometimes longer, just depending on what's going on with it. During this time, sometimes this is when they'll come up and say, well, we've sold it, or we have someone who's going to buy it and they're going to fix it up. And when that happens, as I said, I think last night, we'll try to meet with the prospective owner and find out, do they really have the means to do it? Do they understand everything they're undertaking? And just to be as upfront and honest with them as we possibly can so that they're not blindsided. Sometimes they come in and the previous owner has fed them some information that's not completely correct, so we try to get all that correct so they understand everything. And we have several houses right now being repaired. We'll see how it goes. Wish us luck.
So do you have the option when people come in and say, I'm going to repair, for example, the house last night that had so much back taxes, do you have the option of saying, you don't realize you can't do this?
We do. And I only do, and I try to, again, that's something else I bring to someone's attention, whether it be the property owner or a potential buyer, is you still have to pay these taxes. So there's no need in you fixing this house or saying you're going to fix the house, start investing money in it, and it's going to be foreclosed by the county. And sometimes they don't put them together. So again, I just try to do the best we can to make sure they're aware of everything. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, forget it. It's not worth it. Sometimes they'll find someone who purchased it, so they maybe get $1,000 or something out of it.
Do the back taxes have to be paid before the permit is issued?
No.
Okay.
No. If we were to say, go ahead, do what you want to do, put your money into it, and they would not necessarily have to pay the back taxes before they got a permit to make repairs.
But the county handles theirs separate then?
Right. But I usually recommend and try to, and I've communicated a couple of times with the county to say, have they contacted you and made arrangements? Because they'll tell me they have. And then I contact them and they say, no, we hadn't heard from them. And I don't, I mean, I have my job to do, but I don't think I don't want anyone to put themselves in a worse situation than they were already in. So for them to try and just save face and put $5,000 into fixing up a house, they owe $15,000 in back taxes, it's going to be taken away. It just doesn't make any sense.
Any other questions? I'm sorry. If you want.
Okay. So just that our minimum housing process, the things that we follow are set out by general statute, our notification and how we have to notify in 160D, and it allows for due process so that we're not violating anyone's rights. At any point in the process, if we learn something about a case which may warrant us to start the process over, it may be insufficient notification of an owner or party of interest, a foreclosure, bankruptcy, death, title issues, ownership issues. I've had all of that happen. And then if we make a mistake in the process of a case, the city could be subjected to a lawsuit. So that's why, you know, sometimes there's a gap in between the original inspection date and the hearing. So if I'm reviewing it and I find a mistake, we'll go back and redo everything so that everything's would hold up in court. And then we do work with owners by granting extensions for repairs. And we always ask the owners be actively making repairs as time is granted. We don't just say, oh yeah, you have 90 days, we'll check with you in 90 days. We keep them usually on 30-day increments and follow up on that. So if owners continue to make progress or meet the benchmarks they've set, we'll work with them. If they have not had any communication, then we may grant one extension after the order is up, and we try to always give the owner the benefit of the doubt if possible, and we'll just document it. But we usually do follow up every 30 to 45 to see, are they ordering this, or can they show us proof that this was ordered and is coming in so that we can document it and grant the time. And then there are times the owners show an interest in selling the property, and we do grant time for this as well. We would much rather the house be fixed. So if they say that they're going to try and sell it and someone is going to fix it up, we'll work with them to again, 60, 90 days to see if they have any interest. And then we still continue to monitor the case. And then if nothing comes from that, then we do go ahead and move it forward, bring it to y'all. I think that's it. Any questions?
Any other questions? Staff? Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll just say, I've been around for a minute, and I really didn't realize how much work goes into going through a single case. And it's one of the reasons why I think that we do, even though we do come across difficult cases, we lean on our staff and their expertise on how to move forward. So, I know we've had a few cases that people felt a certain way about, but I think we need to continue in that way, in that manner. All right.
I'm sure that we're aware that if a case comes to us, it has been vetted for many months by Lori's department, so.
And the extensions, the number of extensions, that's a big one. Okay, that was the last item on the list. If no one has anything else, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Good. Anybody opposed to adjourning? Nope. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.